Hello everyone, welcome back to another video. In this video I'm going to be talking about ADHD and ADD, also certain compounds that are used to treat them. And yeah, so if you like these type of videos, please subscribe to my channel and give this video a thumbs up. Just a reminder, my disclaimer, I am not a doctor and I am not a chemist, nor do I pretend to be either one of those things. I do not encourage the use of any substances, legal or illegal, and this video is strictly for educational and entertainment purposes only. So let's get into it. Attention deficit disorder and attention deficit hyperactivity disorder. So, this is often what people are labeled as when they're young boys. Most young boys are labeled as ADD or ADHD. I personally think that it is over diagnosed when males are young, simply because when they are put into classrooms specifically, they don't like to sit still. It was even noted as early as like 1903 when classroom settings started to become commonplace. But we do know that certain people have ADHD and ADD symptoms stick around when they are adults. And this is where I think it is very different from just labeling people who are very young with ADD or ADHD. Because I think most young boys will have at least some sort of ADD or ADHD. And then as you get older, you realize that there are certain things that have to be done. There are certain things that on a daily basis you have to do. But with people with ADHD and ADD, they'll often just choose to not necessarily choose, but they'll disregard doing the things that have to be done to chase the dopamine, as people like to say, because dopamine is the main component, theoretically, to why people with ADHD and ADD kind of suffer when it comes to trying to do tasks they don't like. Now, this is where medication comes in. So Adderall, Vyvanse, Ritalin, all of these play on the dopamine pathway. In the brain, dopamine is responsible as one of the reward systems. So people who have ADHD will often be extremely invested in things that they get a lot of dopamine from. And that's why they might, seem just rude or whatever in class when they're staring out the window or just drawing on their paper or maybe playing a video game, because the fact of the matter is those things are giving them dopamine, while in a normal brain you can at least force your brain to have a reward system, a reward with dopamine for doing things that have to be done. Now, like I said, I don't think it should be commonly diagnosed in young people, specifically young boys. I think it's overdiagnosed. But in particular, I think a lot of people... Sorry, I wanted to turn off my air filter really quick. I think a lot of people can actually benefit from ADHD and ADD type medication, especially because ADHD and ADD are not necessarily you have it or you don't. I think in a lot of cases, people have a sort of scale. And what I mean by that is some people might get small amounts of dopamine for doing things that are required of them, but not a lot of dopamine for but a lot more dopamine for doing something else, versus other people who might get no reward in their brains for doing something that is required of them. Often this is just, growing up. You have to learn that certain things need to be done, and eventually your reward system will take over and supply dopamine for things that have to be done. But in a lot of adults, people will have problems taking care of themselves because instead of going to shower, they might play too many video games, even though showering is what needs to be done, and that sort of thing. And so the idea is that medication will supply them with the dopamine to do things that make them less happy, because it will synthetically, artificially make them more happy, at least in theory. There's also one more factor that I recently learned about, that people, when they have to do tasks that they do not hyperfixate on, that's typically the term people use to describe what gives them a dopamine rush or something that makes them very happy and they can actually focus on. will have pain receptors light up in the brain if they're not doing that and they're doing some sort of arbitrary task. Like, let's say an adult is trying to file for their taxes. They might have extreme amounts of pain in their brain even when they finish it, and have no sense of reward from completing the task, which is obviously very detrimental for people who are trying to take care of themselves, especially as adults. Now, things that are stimulant-based, like Adderall and Vyvanse, kind of like in the amphetamine type category, because they are amphetamines. And if you notice, amphetamine is highly addictive, and methamphetamine is a derivative of that. Not saying methamphetamine and amphetamines or Adderall are all the same thing. They're not. But they are, generally speaking, addictive, especially in higher doses, and you can build a tolerance to them. And that's why I think there is an overprescription. There was at least an overprescription of those medications. Now there might be an underprescription. But I think that the way they are telling people to take them, like on a daily dosage, is dangerous because they can be addictive. And then there's Ritalin, which is just a dopamine reuptake inhibitor. So that just is more along the lines of something like Wellbutrin, or even how technically selective serotonin reuptake inhibitors, or SSRIs, will block the reuptake, which is the retraction from the releasing neuron to the synapse. A dopamine reuptake inhibitor will do the same thing. I think, logically speaking, Ritalin might work very well, and so will the other types of amphetamines. People report having great effects even without ADHD because of the excess dopamine, but it can also cause people, ironically, to get more ADHD-type symptoms if they do not have ADHD when they take these, because they might start to get distracted and get more dopamine from things they would have not otherwise. Now, this is a very controversial topic, and I understand that. I'm specifically more so referring to adult ADHD because that's what I'm focusing on. I've had multiple doctors tell me that I have signs of ADHD and that I should possibly go to a psychiatrist to get medicated for it. I have not done that because I wanted to try to find resolutions in my own way. And I think that part of the thing is that certain people just don't thrive in certain environments. So, for example, I don't thrive in school environments. I thrive in my own type of learning, which is how I'm able to make all of these sort of videos, because I'm not learning in a school environment. I can do my research in my own chaotic sort of way, and I can hyperfixate just how I need to. And there's also the fact of the matter that there's a lot of different supplements that I'm going to be talking about in a series. Yes, this is basically an introduction to a series that I want to be talking about, and how different compounds can help with ADHD. And I'm also going to be releasing my very own supplement to help with ADHD type symptoms. It's not going to be a treatment. And always, if you are on any sort of drug for ADHD, talk to your doctor about drug interactions, and also clarify that any of these things could have interactions with drugs you are taking. So talk to your doctor. I'm not going to be talking about that supplement too much today, but I do want to let people know that that is coming out. That is that is on deck for me. So I'm working on that. I'm working on the production of that, and hopefully my initial trial phase will go well. But it is still, to be clear, just an initial trial phase, and it might be a little while before the supplement comes out. But I am very fascinated by the idea that you can use more so natural things, maybe stuff that doesn't build up as crazy of a tolerance and affects the cholinergic system a little bit better with acetylcholine and brain processing, and essentially helps people to focus better that way. Even people without ADHD, but this could be I was specifically targeting this supplement for people with ADHD in mind. And yeah, that's basically where this video is going to leave off. This is the beginning of a series where I'm going to be talking about different ADHD and ADD supplements that you can take, different things that can stimulate the brain, help with dopamine reuptake. I mean, I wouldn't be releasing a dopamine reuptake inhibitor or anything, but it could help potentially to make it so that different tasks, maybe boring tasks, are easier. Now, that is going to be it for today's video. Please subscribe to my channel. Please give it a thumbs up. Remember to keep those shoulders back and down when you lift, and I hope everyone has a great one.